Hi Mavericks! Welcome to Food Mavericks 1000. This is Teddy Rose, and we are going to, redeem the bread. It worked. You'll have some stills of that. The first wave of the kind of sweet bread dessert that we made didn't rise. It wasn't my fault. It was the yeast. So plow forward if you have a really bad failure. This is the dough at this point. What we did was we mixed the dough up. We kneaded it a little bit. We put it in the fridge, maybe 16 hours in the fridge, and it had doubled in volume. And so since it wasn't quite time to video, I could have gone right to making the shape. It's going to be in for its final shape, but it wasn't time. So I punched it down again. You can do that once, I would say, without the bread going too rangy. And now we're going to make the shape. But before we actually roll this out, punch it out would be a better say. We're going to make the filling. Today we're going to make peach filling. Oh yes, these are fantastic. I wish you could smell them from there. I've got 3 of them cut up here so you didn't have to wait while I did a bunch of them. These are fantastic. They're Georgia peaches and they cling. So if you have the free stone, you won't have this issue. Beautiful. I just cut around the pit instead of trying to pull it off the pit or anything, because then you don't squish the pieces while you're trying to cut it off. I just want you to see one of them, how it goes. There's the pit. There's a little one there. You can get a little more out. Okay. Make sure you don't have any of that center pit stuck to the fruit here. And we just have this knife. Wouldn't be what I would use if I were doing it for 100, but since it's just a knife in hand, we're going to use this small knife. And there we are. Okay. Now, these are not as juicy as some, but when they start cooking, they're going to let their juice out. And in the middle of that bread dough, you could have kind of a sloshy mess. So we're going to add a couple things here. One of them is flour. This here looks like maybe 1/4 of a cup. So maybe a couple tablespoons in there would be enough. We're going to add some sweetener. I'm going to use brown sugar. Makes it nice. And we're not measuring here, guys, so you can see in my hand about 1/4 cup, a little more, like that. It'll depend on your fruit, you know, and your taste. How much of that sugar, which naturally could be just about any kind of sweetener, that's not liquidy. So you can use the granulated sugar. You can use, you know, the kind you use if you're not wanting sugar, like on a keto diet. Well, this isn't keto, never mind that, but still, most sugars that are granulated will work. I put in about 2 tablespoons maybe, and what we'll need to do is work that together. But I'm not going to do it right this second. Oh, the spices. Okay, this will do really nicely with cardamom. This is that fresh stuff. If you watch the other video, this was freshly ground for this purpose from little tiny cardamom seeds. So it's stronger than the powder that usually has been sitting around, if you can get it at all. So if you have one of these little magic bullets, you can do that too. This is powdered cinnamon. There we go. So you saw that, just shake some in. And now what we're going to do is clean off our surface and spray it with our happy spray, so that the dough doesn't stick like crazy to everything. Just a little bit. One feature is the lid here. And I'm going to spray the tray that we're going to put it on. Ha! It's perpetual that. Okay. Now. Okay, so now like if you've punched it down, and let it sit for a minute, punch down maybe half an hour, it'll be rising again. And so you'll see. It's risen a little and wants to be punched down. Hee hee. This is fun. I love this part. Okay, so the texture is just amazing. And this has been sitting in a warm place, and this particular oven has a magic dial called proof. With rising dough, I think it happily rises around 90. It will rise at a lower temperature than that, but if you go too much over 100, it starts getting rangy. So it works inside usually all year, one way or another. Okay, now we're going to give it a little bit of a knead, just a little. Oh boy, silky. This is actually like one of my favorite textures. It's silky. You can see it's soft. I'm not pushing too hard, but it's not too sticky either. So this is ideal, especially for putting fruit inside of it. If it's too wet, it'll be a whole wet business. And too dry, and you won't have that kind of delicate, soft, kind of pastry-like thing that we're going to get out. As you'll notice, this doesn't need to be very much. Just kind of let it get a little bit. You'll feel the stretch. That's good. You want it to feel stretchy. Now, let's see. I'm going to get them a tiny bit wet, just to make it be not too sticky when I do this part. We're going to make a shape today that's not a ring. I'm going to do kind of more of a classic, like strudel shape. So you're going to want to get this into sort of more like a square-ish than a long rectangle. And again, you see it likes to come back together. That's its nice stretch. Half inch about, especially with that much filling. So I would say this is like a 3 cup of flour dough. So we're looking at if this starts taking too long and it's pouring, then we'll cut and come back to when it's laid out. You don't want to you see how it's like you don't want to break the dough. This is why if your hands are a little wet, they won't start sticking and breaking it up, like tearing it. That's a little thick. You can see from the sides about a half inch, just a tiny bit. Again, you don't want to do too much of this or you get it wet. So we're looking at maybe 9-inch square, 10-inch square-ish, something like that. Okay, now we're gonna put the filling in, and what I like to do is, see, your hands are gonna get really messy, so might as well have it be all one process. That's my attitude. And I have to wash your hands all the time or get ginch everywhere. Mostly just mix it in there, break the butter up a little bit. You'll be able to feel that the flour is kind of there. It's just kind of coating it. Now, beautiful. This would work with, any kind of fruit really that'll cook. This is especially nice. Blueberries would be great. Apples, I've done with apples. The only trick with apples is making sure they're cooked the way you want them to cook. We'll work on that sometime. Okay, now, get your pan. Before you start building this, here's our pan. Nearby. Check, okay. Then there's a little juice left. I'm not going to put that in there. It'll make it too wet. Okay, so now, see how there is already quite a bit. We're going to just see if we overdid it here. More filling than you. Okay, could be a little bit. You're going to need to stick this together. And this can be the trickiest bit of the whole process. You're going to try and sort of fold one over and pinch them together. See if you can get a closure. It looks like I have more fruit than I'm going to be able to deal with. You'll see it falling out. We'll do something else with it. Never a problem around here. Okay, now then. It's pretty good. It's sort of trying to fall apart on me. No worries. Just get it as good as you can. And if you've oiled your thing, now what we get to do is a tricky bit. If it comes apart too much, you'll probably have a problem. You kind of hold it here and thwomp. The open side is down. Nobody will know. Okay? So this is sort of like a strudel shape. Boonji boonji. Try and get it even so that what I'm doing right here is I'm kind of pushing the fruit down to the end so that everybody gets their fair share, and not just the people in the middle. Okay, so there's that. And you can probably see the size. Let's check the size. We're going to want to see that we did fine later. You'll notice it's not exactly even. It's probably also open on the bottom. So we're just going to call it whatever. Because if you hadn't done peaches, say you just done cinnamon and sugar, it would be way easier to glue that stuff together if it hadn't been as much fruit like we did with the elderberries. It's a little bit. Then you've got, the dough isn't like getting wet and ginchy. Again, a really sharp knife for this is going to save you a lot of trouble. In fact, let's come back later. Let me cut it over here. I'll show you one cut. But I don't want you to live through this process. See? I'm trying to get through that without completely demolishing the shape. The knife is only so sharp. So a little bit like this. Okay? Now we'll come back to it. Then find yourself a nice sharp knife. You'll be happy. The dough was sliding out sideways, which means that it's just fruit on the bottom. So I just tucked it in like a bed down there, and you can see it should be fine. Now we're going to put this in here for about half an hour. And then I'm going to bake it at 350 for about half an hour. We'll see about that. Meanwhile, you don't have to watch any of that. You can just know that if you were at this stage, you'd stick it into a nice, the less drafty it is, the better. So in here, not only in this case is it not drafty, but the air in there is the right temperature, which you can achieve if you don't have a proofing dial on there by having heated it just a bit beforehand making sure the temperature in there is 100-ish or a little lower. Okay, now we'll come back, and what you'll be looking for is doubled in bulk. It's sort of hard to tell. You'll get the feel of that, but we'll show you what that means in about half an hour.